So I'm back home from my little trip away, but you were to the International Franchise Show. I want to know all about it. How did it go?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you certainly looked as though you were having a nice holiday, wearing your wellies and what have you. But from the photos that we saw or the background, it looked stunning. So hope you nicely
Yeah,
relaxed.
that's great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, the show. Um, it was awesome. Kevin was there for the whole 2 days. I was just there for one day. Certainly, I know. Well, Kevin decamped into the coffee shop and was talking to people all day long. I was wandering around the show, talking to people, networking, etc. It was packed from the minute the doors opened to certainly the time that I left. Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a great show. As Tim, as you said, it's really packed and just had a real buzz around it. And I think, I'm still relatively new to this space, so probably last time I went, there were things I wasn't even aware of, and I think definitely the international bit. I really noticed that a lot more this time somehow. That some of the brands there, and as we've talked before about just some of the scale of some of these brands trying to come into the UK kind of dwarf a lot of the brands that I'm used to talking to, and that almost that whole approach, venture backed in some cases, trying to move extremely fast rather than, I'm used to people talking about organic growth and little by little, and these guys are just kind of whoosh, trying to grow very, very quickly. And it's just interesting seeing that whole dynamic. Obviously, there was the kids activity area set up by Andrew Walters.
Yeah,
So it's great to see some of those brands and lots of people I know there. So that was nice.
yeah.
Um, yeah, just and as you
I
say,
think
for me, sorry, go.
sorry, I was just going to say what was really satisfying for me was at the elite franchise after party, talking to some of the franchisors there, at how blown away they were at two things in particular, both crucial, of course. One was the quality of the conversations they were having with the people that came through the door, and secondly, the number of leads that they got. One of the key brands walked away from day one with 100 leads on day one. I mean, that's virtually unheard of. And I think it was Ryan at Teslom was saying to me that on the stand they opened up a discovery day for for I think it was yesterday maybe, so the following Thursday from the show, and that was opened up purely because of the volume of people and the demand they had from people who were interested in the opportunity. So from not only what I saw but what I heard from the franchisors, it looked as though it was and sounded as though it was a very successful day. Oh, and then of course another one, talking to Phil McKechnie at Radfield, he said that from the time that they got onto the stand to the time that the show closed on Friday, and there were three or four of them on the stand, they hadn't got an opportunity to get off the stand.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, which is also great. So yeah,
Yeah.
the show
Well,
in a nutshell. On that.
Yeah,
I've missed
and
a
like you
lot
say, I
then.
think so. As you say, Tim, I sort of hung out in the coffee shop. That's been my strategy now. Is like, how do you make the most of these shows? And I think this is probably should be probably true for the exhibitors as well. Is don't just like wait till the show. I do loads of networking on LinkedIn beforehand and line up loads of meetings, and that could easily be true for the franchisors as well. And then just day one, I just back to back meetings, and then day two, it's a little bit slower. I take the time. Franchisors are more open to talking, and even then, a lot of them I've already spoken to. They said, "Yeah, come over to the stand. It'd be great to talk."
Yeah,
And just go around the show and talk to people on day two.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
but just playing devil's advocate here, I mean, if you line up so many meetings, then you're not leaving yourself enough time to see what comes up and, talk to maybe those, maybe somebody you didn't expect to talk to.
Yes, although I tried to go to the after parties and went to Ed Pennell's, social and so on. And then day two, I did have quite a few serendipitous conversations. I'd like marked my card, if you like, and I'd gone round and seen various people, but there's quite a few brands that I'd missed when going down the list. And actually walking around, I just got into some fantastic conversations with a couple of brands, really connected, and looking forward to following up with them. So that it's kind of like, I'm a supplier. I want to be really respectful, and we're all suppliers, right? I want to be really respectful of people's time on day one. The number of people that tell me that they have people sidling up to them, not really listening, and either trying to just flat on sell to them, or pretending to be potential franchisees, and then 10 minutes into the conversation, when you wasted all their time, that they kind of let slip that they're actually a supplier, and they're never going to buy a franchise. So I try and make that very clear early on in the conversation, so that if they're too busy, I don't even talk to them. So I didn't even get to the Radfield stand because they were always busy. I'm working with those guys anyway, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of the social that Ed organizes with the sponsors. The after party, Elite. I think those are such great opportunities for all of us to catch up and to have those conversations that we didn't have time for during the day. But I completely agree with both of you. I think for me, it's all about the preparation before you go to the exhibition, and actually it does take a bit of time and effort to get exhibition ready, in order to make the most out of that, because it's quite a big investment and you want to invest that money in the right way. So it's an opportunity for you to get your brand out there, to really be your best, show your best, and and make the most of the day, both the run up to it and the days after.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree with you with there's so many good conversations to be had at the franchise social and things like the Elite Franchise After Party. The challenge is you've got to be in a state to remember what those conversations were the next morning. Just a quick story.
I was teetotal, Tim. I'm teetotal.
Yeah.
Which
Quick
I have
story.
to say isn't much fun. By about 9 o'clock, when everybody around you is at least 3 drinks down, and you're stone cold sober, it is a little bit hard. I'm like, but
well,
I feel like I wake up in the morning, do it all over again. So
well, I tell you, leaving the franchise social evening on Thursday, I met outside of the Fox. I met Rachel and Millie from Global Franchise, and we were chatting away. And the next thing, an Uber pulled up, and Rachel. I asked Rachel, "Oh, is this your cab?" Yeah. Where are you staying? Holiday Inn Express. And I said, "Oh, I'm staying at the Travelodge next door. Can we share?" Yeah, absolutely. Hop in. We got to their Holiday Inn Express, and this isn't the Holiday Inn Express that's next door to
you went
my
to the wrong
travel lodge, and
Not that
that
one.
isn't the travel lodge I'm staying at. So I literally had to hop out with Rachel and Millie, and then call another Uber and get back to where I was supposed to be. I can remember that, but the conversations in the 3 hours prior to that, I'm not sure. I hate admitting that, by the way. Yeah, but you're right. Those socials are absolutely brilliant, and part of the. I really do think they're an important part of the shows now. Yeah.
Well, we got photographic evidence of being on the yacht on the Elite Franchise after party, which was cool, with the sun going down. It's just fun.
Yeah.
And watching various people enact the scene from Titanic as well, which is funny.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Next year.
Oh yeah, no, I'll definitely be there next year. I'll just have to rearrange my birthday.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you should just ask Simon Chicken to rearrange the date of the show. Get his priorities right.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
One other thing about the show, if I could, is sorry, I think it was really good. You mentioned it, Kevin, about the children's activity pavilion, and I think that it was a great job by Andrew at Andrew Walters, because it just allowed another part of our sector to be able to find the resources, because it's not cheap to do a show, to 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 highlight their brands to the general public. I'm not sure how they did. I went through the pavilion a number of times. There was always a buzz in there. There was always a lot of people wandering through. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the feedback is from that, because that was a new part of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. I think it's fantastic to see that happening, because actually, franchising spans such a wide variety of businesses. The whole point is that, there are so many franchise businesses, from very much lifestyle businesses through to, huge, big, multi-million operations. And they're all so different. So to be able to bring some of the some of the smaller businesses, some of the more lifestyle choice businesses, or businesses who wouldn't otherwise be there because of the how prohibitive some of the costs can be. That's great, because I think
Yeah.
just generally, as a sector, it just gives people who come to these shows an idea of what variety there is. And actually there are so many different choices, depending on what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think however that went, when you do something for the first time, it's always going to be better next time, isn't it? So I kind of got the impression that there was some really good things, and probably some things that everybody thought, oh, maybe we could do it like that next time. The great thing is that they will have now lots of photos and feedback and discussions and so on to put on the marketing material for next year, to get the right kind of people along who would want the kids' activity. Year one, I think, for any event or thing is really hard. So I think for a year one, it looked fantastic. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you just hit on a point there, Kevin, about content for marketing collateral, or however they use it. But there were 250 odd stands at the show. There's a huge amount of content that can be derived from that. To your point, which you make very often, huge video opportunity at the show for a brand, to take. Now I'm getting with the lingo now, to create a long video, but to create shorts out of that, to create
yeah,
reels, to put out to their own following. And I'm wondering whether brands actually take advantage of that. That's part of their strategy at a show. You've got an intense 2-day marketing piece, which sure is focused on talking to prospects, but there's also this sort of 18-hour slot which you can create loads and loads and loads of content.
I can tell you now they are not, and I can tell you why I know that, because uh, very few of them had a videographer. A few people had a videographer come to the stand, right? But if you're a decent sized brand, to be honest, I think it'd be worth it just hiring a videographer for the whole time, right? Just video, 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 right? You can create a huge amount of video at that thing. You can interview people. With those things comes a speaking slot, so you can interview, follow you,
Sure.
journey of the day, come in as we set up. There's so many opportunities for content. You won't use it all, but some of it will be B-roll. You can cut into other things later on. So if you are a speaker speaking at any kind of decent size event, the event themselves might be doing video, but you don't want to rely on that, because sometimes it's rubbish, or you don't have access to it, or they didn't really video you very well. As soon as you get to a certain sort of size, if you're speaking at an event, just get a videographer to come along with you, get you talking to people afterwards. Went to an event last year, and it wasn't the organizer. One of the speakers, he was mic'd up. So when he's talking to people afterwards, he was mic'd up, and when he was talking to people, he'd clip a mic on them, and this videographer is capturing the whole thing. So all these little discussions become little interviews. It's just capturing content. I like to say everything is content. It's not. I borrowed. It's
Yeah,
not my idea. But just everything is content.
Mm.
When I
no,
get slightly
absolutely.
bigger, one of my first hires will be a videographer, because it's all very well being the video guy, but trouble is, if you're out selling, you need somebody videoing you. Otherwise, I want to be in front of the camera, not behind it. And frankly,
Yeah.
I don't want to do all that horrible editing that takes forever, right? Somebody else can do that. Um,
Yeah.
so getting a videographer is absolutely uh, pretty cheap investment,
Yeah.
I think, given how much those things cost. So anyway, my high horse, but
Yeah. No, sure.
yeah,
Uh, Crikey, yeah, I just remembered as well that, in terms of talking about content, one of the things that Coconut Marketing have been doing, Paul Clegg, Adam, and Steph, along with Mark Harmon over the last, 5 shows, I think, is they do the podcast recording, 15 minutes per
yeah,
slot. That's a great opportunity for franchisors to sit down, be interviewed, and again, you've got 15 minutes worth of solid content. And I was quite surprised Coconut had some slots still available on the morning of Friday when they started. I did a podcast with them, but yeah, you'd think that well, let's say it would be great if more franchisors snapped up that offer of Coconut. Great initiative, brilliant initiative.
totally. What's genius about that? I actually talk about this in my training, that if you can make it's all back to the idea of story selling or story brand or whatever. It's putting yourself as the guide, right? So Coconut Marketing and Mark Harmon, that's a genius move by them, because they're positioning themselves as the guide. They're inviting people on, telling their story, but of course, by telling their story, really, they're telling their own story. We can do this for you. We can help promote you, because that person is now motivated to share that. You've just made them famous.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a great way to do testimonials as well. Where just make sure that if you've done some
yeah,
work
yeah.
with a client, make them famous rather than it be about you. That's
Sure,
a
sure.
genius move. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nat, you were going to say something.
Well, yeah, I was just, but all I was going to say is it just comes back to being prepared, and how much prep have you
yeah,
done in the run up to the event, whatever that event might be. And actually, just last week we had the BFA Power Hour focusing on um, submissions for awards, and the BFA awards have now opened for this year. And I thought, the presentations were absolutely fantastic. I mean, Ben opened up, and his sense of humor, it just always, I think he
Yeah,
just brings so much to his
yeah,
presentations. And the one thing that that Ben and Catherine and Natasha all touched upon is preparation, and don't just sort of come to don't just submit an award last minute as a, oh my god, deadline is tomorrow or deadline is today. And I cannot tell you how, from having judged some of the awards in the past, just general business awards, it's so obvious when something is done last minute. It's so obvious when
yeah,
it's a cut and paste
yeah,
job. It's so obvious
yeah.
when things have not been thought through, that I would probably say, I would probably go as far as saying don't do it, because whenever I see a a badly done application, I just, I don't know. I find it really difficult as a judge to sit through and not get irritated by it, because you kind of think, what, I'm taking I'm dedicating my time to this, and actually judging some of the awards takes time.
Yeah.
It takes real time, and I don't mind. I love it and I enjoy it, and it's always, for me, it's always interesting to see what people are doing, because it's fantastic. There's so many brands out
Mhm.
there doing fantastic things, and a lot of the time I think it's a shame. I know that they are better than this submission. You always kind of go like, oh, it's a shame that they didn't really put more,
Yeah.
or
As a matter of interest, Nat, do they do? I'm not sure you could do it blind, but they do it blind? Like, do you know the brand that you're actually reviewing?
Mm. Well, the awards that where I've been involved, yes, and like I say, I've judged a few awards, including non-franchise, sort of just business awards. You get, you get information about the business from their submission. So, usually there is a little blurb about sort of the background, and then, typically there is sort of quite, they're submitting their application a certain sort of for a specific award, so they have to talk about, to meet the criteria, etc. And yeah, you can straight away tell when it's a copy and paste job, or when they've just kind of not really not really read the brief. And
Yeah.
then, or you kind of go
It
like, the
also,
brief is
it
there.
also shows, yeah, I think if then if an applicant is doing a cut and paste job, as you've talked about, there's a misunderstanding then of where the true value of the awards process and system is, which is why the awards industry itself has exploded over the last 30 years. There's an award for everything. The reason being is because it gives you great collateral for content, great collateral for, and that includes your PR work. It includes the logos you can put on your emails and on your banners and your stands at shows, etc. It gives you credibility in the marketplace, and it's something for you to shout about for a whole year. Even if if just as you, as a contestant or an applicant, great coverage if you're a finalist, and of course, massive coverage if you are the overall winner in a category, or you become, in our case, in franchising, the franchisor of the year. And it's the same with, with awards like the Elite Franchise 100. Real effort has to be put in those applications, because you're talking about, hundreds and hundreds of applicants, brands applying, and they're trying to get into the top 100. So you've really got to concentrate,
Yeah.
to make the biggest, to create the biggest benefit from the award.
And the thing is as well, often submissions are, you're limited in the number of words that you can
Of course,
submit, right? And actually, there was a really good question. One of the one of the questions that came up was, how do you cut down? Because the sort of when we discussed the application process, and I think it was Ben who said, sort of start with putting everything down and then cut down and review. And I agree. Sometimes when you're writing about your business, or you're trying to describe what something specific that you've done or something that you've achieved, it is really difficult to cut down without maybe sometimes losing sense, or losing something. And I would always say, if you're struggling with cutting, I mean, I always approach cutting down, because it is so much harder to write something in fewer words than it is when you have
Yeah.
no limit, right? So
Or
being
play with a
concise,
video than anything else.
right, being concise is actually more difficult. So I would say there are two things that I do. For example, number one is, once you've written stuff down, I then go and literally look where I can change the language, and can I say something with one word instead of two or three words? Is there another word that conveys the
yeah,
same? And then get someone that you trust, maybe your other half, or family member, or a colleague, and get them to read it, and ask them to rephrase it or cut it down, because then you're getting somebody who is not in it, who is not involved to a degree that you are, because you know because you might be emotionally attached to what you're saying. So it will be much easier for them to rephrase something without losing the context.
Good bit of advice
yeah,
I thought of after seeing a presenter last week. So I went to the BizX, which is BizX event, which is Action Coach's sort of big national event where an Action Coach coaches take all of their clients. Is it's a pretty big deal. There's some world class speakers there, and some, I think it's about 1,200 people there, 2 days. And the first guy up was Donald Miller. I don't know if you come across him, the writer of Story Brand. So he's a world class expert on
Oh, right.
how businesses tell their story, and he was excellent. I mean, really, really good. And this is something that I'm trying to improve on. I already help people tell stories, but I want to get even better at that. So I'm not an engineer, and I'm trying to tell better stories. Anyway, he said that what they did is that they went through all of their emails, like 50 emails that they send out throughout the year, and they went through applying their own methodology to the emails and went through with a marker pen. And it was just really obvious then we need more of this or less of that. So they had a load of text and some criteria, and they could go through and they could see, like, does this thing match the criteria that either we've set ourselves, or in this, for an awards, what are the criteria? And I turned to Sarah and said, given that the next one was all about AI, it's like, well, ChatGPT, act like an editor and use this, award submission expert. Here's the criteria. Here's what I've written. Show me how I can cut this down to meet that criteria, be much more pithy, or at least show me how I can improve. You've got that iterative process. So that person you were saying about, Nat, could potentially just be you and ChatGPT or a similar, AI bot, which can help you match what you have to a set of criteria, or act as a story brand expert, or whatever.
Yeah, there is certainly a place for that, Kevin. And you know me, I love tech, and I've loved AI, etc. etc. But lots and lots of people still don't use AI as well as they could do. There's still a lot of learning to go on to happen there. The challenge with AI, especially when you're cutting down, to Nat's point, it's really difficult to do concise. But actually, once you get concise can be a lot more powerful than really long form. But you've got to do it in your voice or your brand voice, and it's difficult.
So I definitely wouldn't finish with that. You've got to polish it off at the end. So in that example, I started with my thing first, or start with your content. Don't start with, in that example, don't start with ChatGPT's content. Write it
that in,
and then run it through as more like a honing, iterative process, and that works really well. It was really interesting as well. He was a real master of, like, the one phrase. Like, how do you distill down a concept? Like he was saying about how Hillary could have won in the US election. He said, like, what was wrong with her phrase? And a couple of other politicians, who were trying to beat Donald Trump. What was wrong with their phrase? Like, he can fix it or something. Like, fix what? It's not specific enough, And he said, Hillary Clinton changes the phrase from this to that, she wins, guaranteed. So he was that. Well, we'll never know, but it was interesting. And when you heard what he would have said, you think, I get that. It probably would have. And so, how to use those principles? This stuff matters. How you phrase those words and how you reach out to the judges. Like, what are they looking for? It matters.
Yeah. And it's, and to me, it's, I think I would absolutely echo what Ben said. That looking at the criteria or the brief or whatever it is but looking at what you've been given, it's so important, because there are usually a lot of clues in there as to what you need to produce in order to have a chance. And I think, again, and especially if a question is asking for evidence, and then the application has no evidence, you just get frustrated as a judge reading it and going, but we specifically asked for evidence. I want some evidence.
In that example, if if you're busy, you could easily dump that criteria in. It could easily flag up, hang on, you haven't got any criteria. It says here you need evidence for 0.4.73. You haven't got any. That's what you need to do. Oh, flip.
Yeah. And I can tell you, as a recipient of of an award a number of years ago, a BFA award, having put in that work. So when I was with Tutor Doctor, we received the Innovation Award. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. You're not winning the Oscars, the real Oscars, but you are winning the Oscars in your sector, and you feel like $1,000,000 when your name gets read out, and the video goes up, etc., etc. It's a great experience. So the effort that you put in reaps the reward. And I was really really pleased, for the brand, for the for the work that had gone in to be able to be on that stage and receive that award. Well, actually, I didn't receive it because I wasn't available for the evening, but I know I got loads of photos of the award being my wonderful Head and Shoulders was up on the screen, so I was quite happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and
Quite a week really. I was just going to say, quite a week. We've got the BFA awards being launched. We've just had the franchise show. We're moving on. When's the next franchise show? June, is it? I think June.
I'm not sure.
So yeah, always lots going on, isn't there? Lots going on.
Yeah. I know my diary is filling up very quickly.
This week's crazy. Last 2 weeks have had shows in them, so I've sort of lost five days out of the last 10. So it's been this week is absolutely chocker.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we're all keeping busy. We've had a great show for the sector. So yeah, I guess that wraps up for this week, does it?
Yeah,
I think so.
Great to speak as ever, and see you guys. Next time.
Yeah, great episode. Talk to you guys soon. Cheers.
Bye.